thought that money is the only thing that I need. There's no amount of money that can fix my problems. But I learned really quick, money is not going to fix a broken heart. It's not going to heal a broken soul. It's not going to make you a better person. And then this voice responds, you can't stay here. You have to go back. And I was like, whoa, no, I'm not going back. No way I'm going back. The world's hard and it's difficult and it's challenging and there's a bunch of crazy people down there. I'm one of them. You have to be real and authentic and vulnerable, because authenticity leads to vulnerability and vulnerability leads to transformation. If you can't be vulnerable with yourself, or no, I'm fine, that's not me. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's his fault. It's religion's fault. It's the government's fault. You will always be in a victim mentality. You have to.
Welcome back to the Better Than Best Academy, where we empower Christian men and leaders to rise above the challenges holding them back and embrace their God-given identity and purpose. I'm your host, Coach Red Wallace, and today we're diving into another extraordinary conversation with an interesting and inspiring person. Today's guest is Royal Kye Aurelius Funk. Man, what a name. The author of The Miracle Man, inspirational speaker, empowerment coach with a passion for helping others uncover their unique mission and embrace self-mastery. I'm excited. I know my audience is excited to hear your insight on resilience, divine purpose, and unlocking your true potential. Now, let's really just break the ice and go all in.
Yeah,
from the
let's
beginning.
go right in. I'm not about facades or superficial.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Thanks for being on, Royal. What do you want me to call you? Aurelius, Royal Kye? What would you like to be called, man?
People call me Royal Kye or RK. People call me RK that are my friends. The whole name is an interesting journey as well, man. It's
for sure. You'll have to dive into that in a minute, but I'll call you RK. If you only had 30 seconds to inspire a room full of people, what would you say to make them rethink their entire approach to life?
God is real. Miracles are real. Your life has a divine blueprint that's so intricately woven into your challenges and your trials that God wants to use you in a magnificent way. You just have to believe it, because you've been playing small, because you don't know who you are.
Ooh, let's go. Right off the gate. Coming in hot. I love it, man. Hey, again, I'm so glad that we're getting to have this conversation today. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit more of your story. So let's start there. Tell my audience, who is RK?
Yeah, I'm just the humble servant, bro. I work for the most divine. I just work for God. And I was really lost as a man. I had PTSD. I didn't recognize it. I had some really intense childhood trauma. My life has been just fraught with challenges and difficulties since day one. The devil's been after me since day one, a mark on my back. And I didn't really understand it until much later in my life. And I was at church one time while I was on the road for firefighting, and I was able to go in, and when we're still on the road, and this pastor is, man, you've had a mark on your back since day one. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're anointed. Like, you're here for a big mission, for a big calling. Your life's been really hard, huh? I'm like, how do you know that? He's because, like, you're here for a big mission and the devil's been trying to take you out since day one. And then that's when I was like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. And so us as Christian men and leaders, a lot of people don't really understand that we truly are in spiritual warfare. And
So
I was lost. I was wrapped up in the world. I was drinking. I was drugging. I was just wrapped up in all of this sin and this darkness, because I was so broken as an individual. I didn't know who I was and my identity. And I was like, I was just like this lost child. I didn't know who my Abba was. I didn't know who my father was. And I grew up super hyper religious. I wasn't about religion. I saw all this hypocrisy and all these things that were going on. I'm like, this doesn't even make any sense. They say that they're like Christians, but look at how they treat everybody. Like, there was a huge disconnect. And so I didn't want anything to do with God. I did my own thing for many years. I was like, if this world is all about being rough and tough and you have to be the best, I'm going to be tough and I'm going to be rough. And I was a wildland firefighter and a helicopter attack crew, hopping out of helicopters and raging forest fires. And then I was a state champion wrestler. And then I was cage fighting and racing bullet bikes down roads at 190 miles an hour. Like, I was just wilding out, bro. I was just like, let's go. But it ended in...
Hey, Better Than Best Academy fam. Wanted to take a quick break from this conversation. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. But first thing I want to talk about is, did you know that 98% of the people that watch this podcast on YouTube aren't subscribed? So there's a high chance that you right now are watching this and not subscribed yet. So first, I want to say thank you so much for watching. And two, I want to say go ahead and smash that subscribe button so that you can be the first to be notified when I drop more valuable content like this on YouTube. Now let's get back into today's episode.
God's man, you got to get, you don't get it. You're not understanding it. So I went from hyper religion, where it was this legalistic Pharisee, Sadducee kind of thing, where it was so to the law that there was no connection to God or spirit, I felt. Then I swung on the other side of the pendulum, where I was hyper spiritual, where I was like, I'm the creator of the universe. I'm amazing. And God's like, you're not getting it. But that's how the pendulum swings. And so it was after my near-death experience. I had got out of firefighting. I grew up in Wyoming, the Wild West, a very empathetic kid and child, and just understanding deeper things about. Have you ever heard of SQ? SQ is like Q, but it's spiritual intelligence, right? SQ. And so I just always felt that like my emotional intelligence and stuff, I just didn't understand why the world operated it did. I'm like, this whole system is sick. What are people doing? And so I felt really disconnected. I was angry. And I got out of firefighting. I had PTSD and I didn't recognize it. I didn't realize it. I'd done everything that I could do. And this is what the system says. Just keep on praying and go to rehab and do all these things. But I was so lost. And so in 2017, I had my near-death experience and it was wild. I was in corporate finance at the time and money was my God. I thought that money is the only thing that I need. There's no amount of money that cannot fix my problems. But I learned really quick, money is not going to fix a broken heart. It's not going to heal a broken soul. It's not going to make you a better person. And so here I was making good money, but I felt so lost and so broken. And so one night I got into an argument with my ex-wife, my former wife, and I went to go get a pizza. I'd been drinking. I left on a motorcycle. I grew up riding motorcycles my entire life. I'm a very adept at motorcycle riding, cruising around. The pizza's in the back of the motorcycle. And I'm going down Hollywood Avenue in Salt Lake City in Utah, cruising, no helmet because there's no helmet laws. I'm just cruising around thinking I'm real cool. Pizza's in the back. I'm less than 2 miles away from my house to get back home. And I turned behind me just to look, just to make sure that the pizza's cool. It's a pepperoni pizza. I'm like, hey, you cool, bro? You good? And I turned back around and there was a roundabout. There was no lights, no reflectors, no signage, no nothing. Just this ominous warning, breaking my sense of control. And boom, I hit it head first, 30 miles an hour without a helmet. And it busted my jaw in half. It ripped my skull off, my jaw off my skull from the left side. My entire right side of my face was completely shattered. My part of my skull was caved in and my face was completely shattered and caved in. I had massive internal bleed in my brain, my kidney, my spleen, 3 shattered ribs, shattered scapula, a broken arm, 2 fractures and 3 torn ligaments. And I was on my back and it looked like a murder scene, Dustin. There was so much blood everywhere. I'm hemorrhaging out of my right eye socket and my neck is turned in such a way where I'm bleeding into my own mouth. So I'm about to asphyxiate on my own blood and die. And I knew it. I knew I was about to die and I'm gurgling in my own blood. And I'm on my back. And I pray with all of my heart, all of my might, and all of my soul. And I say, God, please, you have to be real. You have to be real. I know you have to be real. Please save me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And at that moment, my soul blasts out of my body and I go to heaven. And when you're there, automatically, you know that you've been there before. You know that you're in the presence of God. And I think I was in like a waiting room. I didn't see any person, but it was just this perfect white bliss. I want you to imagine your happiest moment, your most joyful moment, your most epic, stoked moment, and times it by 1,000,000, and maybe you'll get there. And how happy and complete and fullness of love, everything you could ever feel, your soul, your consciousness, you're there and your spirit's there. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, right? And I think I say out loud, I'm going to stay here. This is epic. I feel so alive. This is perfect. And then this voice responds, you can't stay here. You have to go back. And I was like, whoa, No, I'm not going back. No way. No way I'm going back. The world's hard and it's difficult and it's challenging. And there's a bunch of crazy people down there. I'm one of them. I'm not going back. And then
Hallelujah.
the voice says again, you have to go back. You're not
Yeah.
done. You have a mission to complete. And I was like, nah, by this time I realized it's God. And I'm like, you're funny, dude. No, I'm not going back. I'm staying right here. I'm
Yeah.
arguing with God. And he's like, you got to go back. I'm like, no, dude, no way. And on the third time, when he says you have to go back, I see my body from above, and
Wow.
it looked like a murder scene. I'm sitting there gurgling my own blood. I'm bleeding everywhere. It just looked like there's a bloody mangled mess of destruction. And I summon up my negotiation skills and I say, okay, if I have to go back, you have to make sure that I'm not a paraplegic. I'm not a vegetable. I don't have a traumatic brain injury. And I
Yeah.
will do whatever you want me to do. I will be your man, but you have to save me and you have to teach me because I'm broken as a man. I'm so broken as a person. I don't even want to live. But if you save me, and you teach me how to live and how to be joyous and happy, I'll go and do whatever you want me to do. You say jump, I say how high. You say run, I say how fast, but you have to teach me. And he's all right, man. Bet I'll give you another chance. And that's the thing. God speaks to us like our best friend. It doesn't come from, in my experience when I was there, it wasn't this place of, oh, welcome here to heaven, thou child. It wasn't like that, bro. He was just
Yeah.
like, hey, what's up? He knows us
Yeah.
intimately,
Knows us.
everything about us, and it's our best friend. And so I said, okay. And I made a deal in my life. And I said, okay. And so I went back into my body. And at this time, I was just seconds away from just checking out. And this trauma
Yeah.
doctor that lives right across the street, kitty corner to where I was, runs up to me, the only person in the world that could have saved me. And he cradles my spinal column. He doesn't want to turn me over because if I don't turn this guy over, he can't breathe. He's dead. So he cradles my spinal column and he turns me over, opens up my airway. He calls 911, takes off his shirt, trying to stop the bleeding. There's blood everywhere. The ambulance that gets dispatched is driving by 2 blocks parallel to where we were. Right there. Boom, they show up right away. He's, let's go. This guy's going to die. We got to get him to the hospital now. They're working on me. And my dad shows up in all of Salt Lake City Valley, GPS pinpoint location where I was. And the EMT runs up to him and says, sir, you don't want to see this. This is nasty. This guy's probably going to die. And my dad's, that's my son. And the EMT's like, what the hell? He's like, how would you even know that? He's, God told me he's going to live. And the EMT's like, what is going on? This is insane. This dude showed up, says it's his son. He's praying for him. They load me up, rush me to the hospital. God stops the bleeding in my brain. Blunt force impact, head first into a cement barrier without a helmet. God stops the bleeding in my brain. No traumatic brain injury. They don't have to do surgery. And they start working on my face after they stent my kidney and my spleen. 11 hours worth of surgery, reconstructing my face and putting me back together. And I wake
Yeah.
up in the hospital a day later and realize that I'm alive and that it's my fault and I had to start from ground zero.
Dude, what a story.
That's crazy.
Wow. You're telling this and I'm seeing a movie. You're
Yeah.
telling us a movie.
Yeah.
Man,
We're working on it, man.
that is
Yeah.
wild, dude. And you've written a book, and we'll share about that later.
Yeah.
So you've lived through this trauma, you've lived
Mhm.
through firefighting and this crazy near-death experience. Since your book's written, but you're still writing your current chapters, I'm curious, what would the title of this current chapter right now be and why?
So, as I launched the book and I've been on this tour of speaking and sharing, and we're working on the stuff that I'm experiencing now, is what I said, The Miracle Man Returns, because the book's called The Miracle Man
Yeah.
Returns. But it would really be trial by faith. Because after the book's done, then I'm an author, but no, you're a book salesman. You got to go promote it
Yeah.
and do all these
Yeah,
things. And
for real.
the stuff that I've been doing has been I live in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And I've been there. Islands
Oh,
saved my life. I understood about resiliency and trauma release and somatic release and all these things I never ever would have experienced. And in July, God's, hey, you're gonna leave the island. The book's pretty much done. You're gonna go and promote it. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not leaving Hawaii, bro. I love Hawaii. This is my home. This
Yeah.
place saved me. And God's, you need to put in your 30 days where you're at and start selling everything because you're going to go. And I'm like,
Wow.
I'm not going anywhere. Where am I going? He's, don't worry about it. So I'm faithful, right? I'm faithful, even though I
Mhm.
don't know where I'm going. I sell pretty much everything that I have. I put in my 30 days, and just a week before August, I'm on this, it's called the Great American Speak Off with Grant
Yeah.
Cardone's foundation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I'm in there and they say, hey, we're going to have a live training in Miami. And God's, boom, you have to go there. You have to make sure that you're there. I'm like, okay, this is where I need to go. I'm like, all right. So I get a ticket and I get a hotel room for a couple of days. And then in full disclosure, because I'd been writing the book and I hadn't been working, and I'm like, Dad, can you help me out with flight points? Like, I got to get to this place. And
Yeah.
he's like, all right, yeah, I'll help you. Like, where am I getting the ticket back to? I'm like, it's a one-way ticket, bro. He's what? I'm like, it's a one-way ticket. And God just wait for the invitation. You're going to meet people that are going to invite you, and you have to trust me. I'm like, okay, so you want me to sell everything I have, go to this conference and event, like did not get a rental or a car or anything, and like wait for people to invite me because I'm going to meet who I need to meet to
Wow.
progress the next step of the journey. And God's 100%. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be faithful. So I go there. I go to Miami, meet these people, and the day before the day the event was over, someone's like, where are you going? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm waiting for the invitation. Somebody's going to invite me. That's what God said. And they're like, and they're believers. And hey, you can come and stay up with us. And we're authors and coaches in Fort Lauderdale. And so
Mhm.
from there, I went to Fort Lauderdale. Then after that, people that I met at Miami were having a conference in Kansas City. And so then I got invited to go to Kansas City and share my story and do a breakout group. Then after that, I went to Asheville, then New York and New Jersey, and then Raleigh.
Wow.
And I was in Asheville during the hurricane. And then I was in Omaha, Nebraska, like all over the place. I was on the road for 3 months. I didn't pay for a hotel, an Airbnb, or an apartment for 3 months because people kept on inviting me into their homes. And they're like, you're
Wow.
on a mission. We're supporting you. We believe in what you're doing. And it's just been faith and knowing that God's got my back.
Man, what was that like? I'm just hearing this story. I understand faith, and I'm a believer too. I'm right there with you with the faith. I can't imagine how that must have felt stepping off of the plane, knowing that God, you better show up because I got no other plan B here.
I have no other plan B. Yeah, it was, as you walk more in your faith, it's, hey, it's going to be okay. I know it's going to happen. Sometimes
Yeah,
it happens in overtime, right? But I know that like when I get invited, it's
for
where I
sure.
need to be. And I kept on progressing and meeting new friends and mentors and fellow brothers in Christ and all these people across the country. And I was like, this is crazy. This is so divine. Like I would have never met these people if it wasn't for this. And so it's just walking completely by faith and knowing, hey, I'm taken care of. If God is for me, who's going to be against me? That's the thing, is that we have to be bold in our faith and our
Oh yeah.
understanding, because our faith can move mountains. And when God
Mm.
says something and he's going to make it happen, he's going to make it happen. But a lot of the times it isn't this clear pathway that's, hey, here's the goal and everything's going to unfold. It's like, where are you going? Take one step forward and it's going to light up. And then you're going to have the next step after that.
Yeah, man, dude, that's
Yeah,
so
that's
good. I love
crazy. It
that.
was uncomfortable.
And
It was
oh,
uncomfortable.
I can only imagine how uncomfortable that felt. But I feel like, oh, there's such a beauty in that, like, being so fully reliant and trusting on God to step out like that. Like, and I hope that your story continues to inspire people to do that. Like, when if I could think of anything with my audience and the listeners and watching at home, if there's ever a question or a doubt that God's real, let RK be a testament of that in his life,
Yeah.
and it's only just begun. That's the craziest part. When I
Yeah.
hear your story, it's wild to me, man. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, you mentioned a little bit earlier about this idea of resilience, and if anything you've learned about resilience. So what does resilience feel like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Resilience feels like just showing up the best you can for that day,
Yeah,
and just suiting up, showing up, even maybe you're not feeling the best. Sometimes I feel like a fraud because I'm talking about empowerment and resilience
right.
and body, mind, medicine, and all these amazing things that I've experienced and done. And some days I feel a little down. I feel a little disconnected. As a man in our society, it's difficult and it's
Oh,
challenging.
yeah.
And so I have to really stay in prayer and in my word and in fellowship with good friends and counselors. And it's really just showing up, and it's uncomfortable. It never, ever gets easier. We get stronger. It's like when we're physically building our muscles, we're ripping apart the muscle fibers and then they're being
Literally.
built back up. And I can handle physical pain. Mental, emotional, and spiritual growth is extremely uncomfortable because we're
So
being ripped apart and we're being stretched and grown. Another story that happened this year, right? As I'm writing the book, God took me from where I was in Kona on the Big Island to Hawi, Kohala, which is the northernmost part of the island. When I got there, God's just right. I'm going to channel you every time before you write, you pray, and you just channel the book. This book was channeled through me. It's God's book. It's just my story. And he's don't work just right. I'm like you want me just to write, like you don't want me to work. Like like I'm a firefighter, a salesman, like was in business and finance. Like I can go and hustle. Like that's perfectly fine. I can go and make money. God's that's not what I want you to do. Like when you died and you made a pact on your life, you said that you would do whatever whatever I wanted you to do, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is what I need you to do. I was like, dude, this is so freaking uncomfortable. So I was writing and life still happens. So with rent and bills and food and the prices in Hawaii, I'm seeing my savings go down and I'm seeing my credit cards go up. And I'm just like, dude, God, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. And this is the biggest lesson I'm ever going to teach you. This is
come on,
one question. Is money your God or am I your God?
one.
Is
That's so
money
good.
your God or am I your God? And I'm like, you're my God. He's okay. I own all the gold and the silver. Do you trust me? I'm like, yeah, I trust you, but bro, this is uncomfortable. And he's, I know,
Right.
I'm growing you and I'm stretching you and I'm
Come on.
building you. And it was so intensely and insanely uncomfortable. And I knew that I was being faithful. I knew that I was doing what I needed to do. And so it was in June and I'm on food stamps, bro. Like I'm on food stamps, like I'm writing this book, I'm talking about miracles and God, and I'm literally like, okay, I don't have enough rent for the next month, dude. And God's just keep on being faithful, keep on going to church, keep on going to your men's groups, keep on fellowshipping, keep on being of service. I'm like, dude, this is insane. This completely goes against everything that the world teaches us. God's, yeah, I know because I'm not of the world. And I'm like, all right, okay.
Come
So I didn't know how I was going to get money for rent. And I kept on showing up and just kept on being faithful and praying and helping people. And after men's group one night, a fellow brother came up to me and says, hey, RK, he says, God wants me to be faithful and he's asking me to bring a miracle to you. He said, I want to help you out. I feel that you need some help financially right now. I'm like, yeah, bro. I'm on food stamps and I can't even freaking pay my rent. I want to donate $3,000 to you.
Hey, come
And
on.
I was like, what?
Come
God's
on.
like, booyah, baby. I always show up. And when we're faithful and when we're in that place of trust, that's when the miracle happens. That's when the
Yeah.
magic happens. That's when it unfolds as it should and divinely. But we as men in our
Mhm.
society believe that I can make it happen. I'm going to go and work and I'm going to go and hustle and I'm going to go and grind. And that was the biggest freaking thing ever for me to completely surrender. I'm like a stallion. I'm like a Ferrari. I want to go. And God's, hold up now. You're in a time of waiting. You're in a period of being stretched. I'm like, this is the most uncomfortable thing ever. But he keeps on showing up again and again. And I have plans to prosper you and not to harm you. I have,
Uh,
if I can clothe the birds and all the animals and they have food. Do you think I'm going to
come on.
forget about you? And so it's a daily thing and I'm getting my daily manna and hey, I'm
Mhm.
provided for. It's good. Things are
Good.
unfolding. And so that's what's been happening. And it's been a wild adventure, bro. And it's been humbling.
Dude, come on. Like, you're stirring my faith up as you're talking. Because if there's anything, man, I know someone listening and watching can relate to that, being in that space of stepping out on what God's called them to do and not
Mhm.
seeing the harvest yet, not
Yeah.
seeing the breakthrough yet, and
Yep.
wondering, "Is this the right choice?" And I love that you are a testament of just trust what God told you to do last. Just keep
Yeah.
showing up and serving him and helping people, and he will take care of his children.
Yeah.
And what a great encouragement. So with that, as I'm thinking, because obviously you went through this amazing near-death experience and radical healing, because that in itself, I'm sure was Crazy, 'cause did you have to do
Well,
any, like, post
so
therapy after
so
that?
yeah, so here's the thing. When I woke up in the hospital and I realized that it was my choice, I had two decisions. Only one of two decisions. There was nothing else. One was continue down the path of destruction and pain and anger at God and me and everybody. Or number two, accept accountability and responsibility and say, okay, I'm going to use this as a catalyst and I'm going to heal rapidly and I'm going to use this as my testimony to inspire and share with other people because
Yeah.
if God, we become new creatures in Christ. If I'm becoming a new creature, I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. And so I made a firm and resolute decision. And I said, I'm healing rapidly. I'm empowered. And I started doing just prayers and mantras and affirmations and this visualization and body mind medicine. And I was only in the hospital 2 weeks and I was working out 3 months later. Every single doctor's, this is impossible. Number one, you should be dead. Number two, you should be a vegetable. Number three, you shouldn't even be able to walk. How
Come
is
on.
this possible?
Right.
How are you even healing this fast? My neurologist said, he said, RK, how in the beep are you healing so fast? He was like, dude, this is insane. This is
Yeah.
nuts. This is impossible. The medical establishment was completely confounded. And so that's what I talk about in my book is when we will our will and when we know who we are and who we're connected to. It's no, my body is a living vessel. It's a temple of God. I honor God and give all glory to God. And so we can heal rapidly. So people, if there's somebody listening that,
Mhm.
suffering with anxiety or depression or these medical issues and stuff, it's get the book, read the principles because you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay in disempowerment and sickness and disease. Like, no, like we serve an awesome God. Like if he created the stars and the cosmos and the galaxies and he knows us intricately, do you think he's just going to leave us alone? No, but we have to open up our minds and hearts to something more and something better and be like, I choose this for my life. I demand that I have more health and wealth and happiness and joy. And that's when things start unfolding.
Come on, that's so good, and you answered it, but that was gonna be my question to that is I'm picturing because obviously the people that listen and watch my content usually are in this mindset of we are, but for the algorithms, the way that things get reached, I feel like someone might come across this conversation in your story, and what advice would you give someone that may be listening or watching who feels stuck on their journey to healing because they've grown attached to their trauma as part of their destiny, as part of
Mm.
their identity?
Yeah. If their identity, yeah, because one of the things I was a professional photographer for a long time and getting the perfect angle and the perspective. And I came up with this analogy is for us to truly change, we really have to understand what our mindset and perspective is. And a lot of people, their perspective is through this lens of trauma,
Mhm.
through this lens of disempowerment. So no
Yeah,
matter where you go, no matter what relationship you're in, no matter how much money you have in the bank, or even if you're having these small wins, if your perspective as your identity is, I am this sickness, I am this trauma, I am this perspective, it'll never change. And so, number one, we have to understand what lens we are viewing ourselves and the world through, because that will always create and dictate our reality. So, once we have that awareness of, okay, I've been in a victim lens, which is causing my mindset to be disempowered, for me to be disconnected. You have to be real and authentic and vulnerable because
yeah,
authenticity leads to vulnerability and vulnerability leads to transformation. If you can't be vulnerable with yourself, or no, I'm fine. That's not me. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's his fault. It's religion's fault. It's the government's fault. You will always be in a victim mentality. You have to accept responsibility. But you know what? I'm in a really crappy situation. Yeah, it's my fault. Yeah, my mindset isn't that great. Yeah, I had a terrible childhood. Yeah, I
um,
didn't have good parents around me, but there has to come a point when you must decide and take responsibility and accountability
yeah,
for yourself. And you say, you know what, this stops today. I'm done with this. This is not going to keep on moving forward. I'm going to change it. And that's what the book helps people out with. And what my program helps people out with because I get it. I've suffered physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual abuse at a young
mhm,
age. I was always bullied. I was raped as a young kid. That's real, right? Okay. That was hard. That was challenging. But God can heal anything. If He can heal me from these things, He can heal you from whatever you've experienced, from narcissistic abuse or physical, whatever it is, like God can heal you. And I can promise you that it doesn't matter where you're at, but you have to be open and willing to be like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this victim mentality. God did not make me to be stuck here. God made me more than a conqueror. He didn't give us a spirit of fear. And if these voices and these paradigms, these trauma, which are normally like entities or demons, like attacking you, wanting you to be disempowered and disengaged, you have to rebuke them. And you have to be like, you know what? No, you don't get to talk to me like this. This is not my identity, because we're in
Oh,
spiritual warfare and you have to
yeah.
battle and you have to know the tools to be able to battle, because it is all in the mind.
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. Come on. Man, and even as you mentioned in your book, so I want to pause and give you the opportunity to share with my audience, like where can they get your book?
Yeah, so you can go. Here's one of the books right here. It's called The Miracle
Nice.
Man, and it's 444 pages of. It's a nonfiction self mastery and spirituality book, and I call it a tome of transformation. I take the
Wow.
reader down these experiences, allow them to be authentic and vulnerable with themselves, so that they can truly understand, what is my perspective? How have I been conditioned by society and religion and programming to have me really be disempowered and not in my true identity through Christ and God? And so it's mystical, it's supernatural. You can go to Amazon and you can type in The Miracle Man, and it will be in probably top 3 or 4. You'll see my face on
Awesome.
it, Royal Kye Aurelius Funk. Or if you want to learn more about the mission and what I'm about, you can go to miraclemanjourney.com.
Nice.
And it's beyond.
I
It's
love it, man. I love that.
uh,
And
it's
we'll have both of those links in the show notes so people can not have to scramble around. But if you're listening or
yeah.
watching, check the show notes. You'll definitely be able to check it out. That's definitely something I want people to check out because it's so interesting. And this thought of self-mastery too. So, what is one truth about self-mastery that people resist the most? And how do you guide them to embrace it?
I think a lot of people don't want to accept that they are truly like children of God, that our identity, like
Mhm.
we are created in God's image. So self
Yeah.
mastery is understanding that you're not just a human, you are a soul having a human
Yeah.
experience. We're not a human, we're a soul that has a body. Like,
Yeah.
and so to really understand, like everything happens at the transformation of the soul level. People want to talk about, oh, let's change your mindset or your heart or your thinking patterns. But until I can connect with your soul and you connect with your soul with God, and you know what, God, like this ain't working for me. Like self mastery is about being able to connect to your truth and to the truth that you are loved. God has a plan for your life. There's a blueprint for everything. You can see it in nature and the waves and the stars. There's a divine blueprint, and we're a part of that. And a lot of people want to negate the fact that there's ebbs and flows in life. And it's like, hey, like just because you went through something difficult doesn't mean that God doesn't love you. He's refining you and building your character. If I wouldn't have gone through my near death experience, I would not be the man I am today. I would not be speaking about these things. I would not have developed my testimony in the faith. And so sometimes I think Mother Teresa said it, the hardest battles are given to the strongest warriors and the strongest souls. And it's true, because once you go through what you're going through, the trauma and the tribulations and the trials, God is going to take that and he's going to turn it into treasure. Your trash becomes treasure. Your trauma
Yeah.
becomes triumph. And then you can help out other people. And that's your superpower. Nobody has
Yeah.
ever been you in the history of mankind. And there never, ever will be another person that has your unique experiences and perspective in your soul that can help out other people. Us as men, our strength isn't for us, it's for service and community to the men and the women and the children in the community to build up strong communities and nations and a
Wow.
world.
Dude, come on. Let's go. Bro, bro,
Yeah.
I love having this conversation with you, man. I feel like we're such kindred spirits because literally, like the work that you're doing, the book you wrote. Now, I didn't have a near death experience, praise the Lord, but I've had my own different
Yeah.
trials
How's the
and
stuff?
things that have shaped me and who I am. And I just love to hear another man of God sharing and using his story to build others. And
Yeah.
just that whole idea of and I love how you put it, self-mastery is first aligning with God and his identity with you and aligning with your soul and how we're souls having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And it's so good. So I'm curious. So the work you're doing and the clients you're with. So what is with all these thoughts, me being in a similar space, I know sometimes it's hard for just the average person to hear a conversation and hear this and be like, "Man, what is going on?" So, I'd be curious, what is one question you wish your clients or your audience would ask themselves more often to spark them to get on this self-mastery journey?
Is it possible? Is it
Mm,
possible to
that's good.
be is it possible to be really loving and kind to myself and other people? Is it possible to feel this amount of joy and happiness? Is it possible to completely come back from these really tough situations or these trauma or this trial? Is it possible that I can live again? Is it possible that I can have a life that's better than anything that I've ever had before? And yes, it's possible. I've rebuilt myself from nothing because I had alcohol in my system and I was drinking and driving. The insurance company denied everything. I was given a $500,000 medical bill, and the insurance company said, "Here you go, bud." I lost everything. I literally, everything that I built up, my thinking at the time that my stability and my strength is in this materialism. It's in my retirement. It's in my savings. It's in my investments. It's in all these things. And God's okay. What happens when everything's gone? What happens when all this materialism, everything's gone? Who are you when you've hit rock bottom and there's nothing around and there's nobody and you go through bankruptcy and divorce and lose everything? And who are you? Who are you? Are you going to get your strength and support from money? Is it going to come from materialism? No. And then you understand, oh, my soul is eternal. Like this materialism isn't going to do nothing for me except for make life a little easier. My happiness cannot be in this. And so I've rebuilt myself from nothing with God leading the way. So if you've been through difficult situations, maybe divorce, maybe trauma, maybe anxiety, maybe depression, maybe bankruptcy, maybe you just feel like you're disconnected as a man or woman in your heart. And you're like, there's got to be more. Like there has to be more. We can help you out with that. And it's amazing. I just love helping people. One of my clients is in Florida and pretty successful businessman. And he's just, I feel numb, as most
Mm,
men do. And our society, be a man up, buck up, don't feel your feelings and emotions. It's inhumane. People don't even know how to connect with their emotions. And so you have to remember who you are. You have to remember and feel, you have to feel it to heal it.
come on, that's so good. That's so good, man. Man, I'm curious. So, as you're painting this picture for me and even for my audience and all those that will hear this, I'm curious. Show, I like this idea of show versus tell. So, I'm
Mhm.
curious if you could take the next however long we can take or long you want to take, show the people at home listening and watching what it would look like to work with you. We'll do a role play. Say I'm
Okay.
one of your
Yeah.
clients. I'll
Yeah.
be the guinea pig for the sake of the
Okay.
experience.
All right.
And I'd love to see maybe, and it doesn't have to be a full, you don't have to give
Nah,
everything
something
away.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, just something simple that I and those at home could do right now
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
something that they could take with them.
Yeah, certainly. So let's put our feet on the floor and then we'll put our hands on our knees. And so, one thing that I want people to understand is energy dynamics. Everything is energy and energy in motion. And people are like, I'm not sure about this energy thing. It's not, everything's vibrating at different levels of energy, at consciousness. And so, one thing that you can do is start rubbing your hands together, right? You start rubbing your hands together and create some heat, right? Go on, keep on going. And you just separate them just a little bit and you're going to feel that there is an energy in between them, just slightly. You can feel it. You're like, oh, what is that? That's a little bit of energy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can feel it. Like my hands are a little tingly, like it's this coolness. If we can generate a little bit of heat and energy just from our hands, what happens if we start with the breath? So,
Mm,
one of the things that happens is a lot of people aren't able to actually, we're not taught, first of all, how to
yeah.
breathe correctly. A lot of people are chest breathers, they're shallow breathers. And so when
Yeah.
you're a chest breather, you're not getting the full range of oxygen that's actually replenishing your red blood cells, cleansing your system, bringing in that oxygenated blood. And so a simple exercise that you can do if you're feeling stressed or you're feeling disconnected, because when we're in our minds, we're not in our body. We're
Mm,
in this mental cognition mode, right? We're in a cognitive performance society. And a lot of people are so in their heads, they can't even feel what's going on. And so a simple one is there's multiple things. If you want to change your state, our physiology follows our psychology and our psychology follows
Yeah.
our physiology. So if you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling a little anxious, get some energy moving,
Yeah.
get
Come on.
grounded, right? And so there's a simple thing that I learned from one of my mentors. I'm sure you've heard of Tony Robbins, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
cool, dude. And this is called a little bit of priming. So when we can alternate our physiology, it's going to change our psychology. So this is called part of the priming exercise. So you take your index finger and your thumb and you put them together and you breathe in 4 times. So, right. And then on the exhale, you go, but you're going to do it with the mantra. So when you're moving your physiology, it's going to alter your psychology. And also with the mantra, you're going to start feeling better. So we're going to just do 4 little rounds and we're going to say, I love my life. Simple. It's a simple thing, right? So simple 4 breaths. So, love my life. I love my life. I love my life. I love my life. And you're generating heat and you can feel it. And it's just a slight shift and you can feel it. You're like,
I love it. Yeah.
okay, I'm moving my energy. I'm getting a little energy going. I got a little mantra and you can feel it. You're like, oh, I feel a little better. I feel good. So simple tricks and tips and things to be able to do
Dude, I love
that.
that. Yeah.
Besides like getting deep into, hey, where's your mindset at? Because people are like, I want a behavioral change. It's okay. You can have a behavioral change, but until you change your mindset and your perspective and really understand who you are,
That's so
you're not going to have it. And to be able to discharge the trauma too, because
yeah.
there's 4 distinct things that happen when people are in a fight or flight or freeze or fawn state, as they call it now, right? So if
Mhm.
you're in a mild state and being in a sympathetic response, you're in the fight or flight, there's 4 distinct things that happen right away. Number 1 is you cannot make your highest cognitive functioning thinking ability. So you're
Yeah.
not going to operate at your highest critical thinking level. You're just not, boom, drops down. Number 2,
Yep.
your immune system drops probably 25-30% because it's going to fight or flight. It's
Yep.
focused on survival. Number 3, you cannot learn any new information. No new information can be retained when you're in this spot. And number 4, it causes a massive amount of dis-ease in the body. So people are like, I can't remember things. Or I just don't feel that great. It's because you're probably in a sympathetic response and you're in a mild fight or flight. And this is the
Yeah.
thing. Once the trauma happens and when something happens, it could have been 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And within the autonomic nervous system, their nervous system is controlled by the emotional seat of our body.
Yeah.
If you're emotional, and because the trauma happens normally through emotional or physical, right? It gets locked on. It's like on. And
Mhm.
it could be 5 years down the road and the system's still on. And that's why you're
Yeah.
feeling anxious. That's why you're feeling depressed because you have
Yeah.
this stuff running in the background and you don't know what's going on. You're just like, I just feel this way because you haven't discharged the trauma from the limbic system, which is the mental and emotional processing center of the brain.
Come on.
So it's pretty simple. They want to make it really complicated, and it is in a certain aspect, but it's not. One of my mentors, amazing man, he's like, the nervous system is simple. It's
Yeah.
literally like a 5-year-old kid. It wants to be seen, heard, felt, and witnessed. So if
Yeah.
my nervous system is controlled by the senses, seeing, smelling, hearing, feeling, tactile touch, wouldn't it make sense that to actually reverse it, you would have to feel it because it's controlled by the
Yeah.
feelings? So that's where I help people get into the feelings and emotions,
Yeah.
discharge it with the tools, and get the reprogramming back online so they can have an amazing day, amazing week, amazing year. So you can wake up and be like, you know what? This actually feels good. One of my clients woke up and they said, I actually woke up early today. I've never woke up early in my life. I actually feel joyful and happy. This has never happened before. I've started reading books and I've always liked reading, but not this much. I have a zest for life again because we have to stoke the fire and get reconnected with our hearts because that's where it's at, life and death, but it's spoken through the tongue.
That's so good, and I love that practice, and Tony Robbins, of course, the one of the founding fathers of all of it. And even as you mentioned it, there's a priming. I did a version of one of his primings and made a YouTube video. I'll probably link it somewhere at some point for my audience watching, but dude, that's such It's so powerful because it's such a simple thing, but like you
Yeah.
said, like, we overcomplicate the simple. Even
Mhm.
as you're mentioning this idea of when you said it's flipped on, I
Yeah.
picture it like we've got iPhones, right? And if you open up your iPhone and you swipe up in a way, I don't have anything open, but when you have a bunch of tabs running in the
Yeah.
background of your phone, it's
Yeah.
running slow. It's running your battery down, and you don't
Mhm.
see it until you swipe up and see, "Okay, I've got all these on." Like, my wife loves to open apps on her phone, and I go and I'm just turning everything
Close
off,
them
and
all.
I say that to say is I picture that with the work that you're doing and even the work that I've been doing as well, is that idea of going back and feeling that trauma and releasing it,
Yep.
and I feel like especially us as men, and I feel like that's
Ooh.
why it's so crucial for us as men and as leaders to go to that because a lot of
Mhm.
times we've grown up to be told that a lot of times you stuff it all down. You just
Yeah.
compartmentalize
Don't
everything.
feel it. Yeah.
And exactly, don't feel it. Rub some dirt on it. Tape an aspirin to it.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where that's all you've done your whole life, and then you wonder why you can't be fully present for your family, your wife, and your kids, and that's because you're
Mhm.
left all these past traumas are left on. You got all these apps running in the background, and
Yep.
if you don't take the time to go back, to feel it, to process it, to overcome it, then you're not gonna live out all that you're
Mhm.
called to do, and I think
Yeah.
that's so great that what you're
Yeah.
doing there, and I think it's great that you're tying in both of those elements there. But
Yeah.
man,
'Cause
RK, it's such a great oh, man, this is so great. Go ahead. What were
yeah,
you
no,
about to say?
because it's especially for us men because I looked up the statistics since a man commits suicide every five,
Yeah,
10 minutes or something.
it's
I was like, wow, this is crazy because they don't feel we grow up in a cognitive performance society
mhm,
where,
exactly.
especially us men, it's like we're in competition. We're always in competition. Yeah,
Yep,
it's a dog eat dog world out there. You always got to look out for your own. And there's not really a safe place for men to feel and process. And if it's done in the wrong place, you'll be bastardized or ostracized or teased and mocked and ridiculed. And it wasn't until I understood that the strongest leaders, the strongest individuals are the ones that process their feelings and emotions in a healthy way. Of course, you can be stoic and there's a time for working hard and discipline and dedication, but there's also a time for reset and recharge to be able to feel what you need to feel because anger is a secondary emotion. It's just the lid on the pressure cooker. And once that
mm,
anger comes off,
yep,
what's down there, the sadness and the sorrow and these
come
things, and
on.
you're not present with your wife or your kids or even yourself, and you're distracted and you're just wanting the next fix. It's like, hey, let's go shopping or let's go drink or let's go smoke
Uh-huh,
or let's go, porn, like all these things because you're not comfortable with sitting with yourself because there's so much
exactly.
discomfort in your nervous system. So people want to be like, I'm bad, I'm doing this stuff. You're not bad, bro. You're not broken. You're just,
No,
it's a natural response to what's
exactly.
occurred, especially as like first responders, fire, police, military, EMS. It's like when you've had really intense, stressful situations or traumatic situations, your neurology, your chemistry, everything's changed. So your baseline is different. And so,
Yeah,
number one, like compassion, patience, and understanding. It's going to take some time to unwind. It's going to
mhm,
take some time to
yeah,
get back to a homeostasis and normal, but it is very possible. And if you're willing to put in the work and have somebody guide you, you can be
yeah,
living an amazing life and really feel like, ooh, you know what? I woke up today and I feel pretty damn good. I'm grateful to God. Thank
come
you,
on.
God. I'm
Yeah,
alive. Yes.
come
That's where
on.
it's
Yeah,
at.
that's so good. That's so good, RK. Man, I it's encouraging to see the work you're doing, not only just with the book, with your story, but I just wanna encourage you to keep on keeping on.
Thanks, bro.
And I know you probably hear it, but I know you if you're anything like me, it's good to hear it again and to be
Yeah.
encouraged.
Thanks,
And
brother.
because the work that you and I are doing is so important. It's so valuable and it's so necessary. And even more so when you know you're in alignment with what God's called you to do. And
Yeah.
you already know you're already winning. Even
Yeah.
though it may not look at like it today or a few days later, it might not look out like it. But
Yeah.
man, I I think it's gonna be beautiful when we get on the other side of this earth and we do get to go to heaven. Again, as someone who's already experienced it,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be beautiful to see all those that we've impacted. And I know you're
Yeah.
probably gonna be thinking the same thing, just to see all the people that you've touched with your story, with your coaching, with your book. and with your books in the future. I'll say plural
Yeah,
because I know
yeah, right.
you're working on more. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to encourage you with that as we begin to land the plane for our conversation for today's episode. Is just man, I just really want to. I just feel strongly just to continue to encourage you
Mhm. Thank
and
you.
to uplift you
Yeah,
and to keep doing what you're doing because
thanks.
it's
Thank
important
you.
work you're doing.
Yeah.
And with that, do you have any final words for my audience or the podcast before we sign off?
Yeah. We truly are one decision away.
Come on. Amen. Man, that's it. That's it for this episode of the Better Than Best Academy podcast. Man, a huge thank you again to Royal Kye Aurelius Funk. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your story with us. And don't forget to go check out his book, check out his journey, the mission, all that he's a part of. I'll link that in the description below for you to connect with him and connect with what we're doing with the Better Than Best Academy and my coaching and whatnot. But man, with that said, I want you to remember that you're watching, you're listening. My new friend RK, man, I love you, friend, and I'm praying for you. Now let's go live better than best we conquered this week, and I'll see you in the next video.